Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another Sims info and thoughts video. So we're going to be going over more SimGuru Q&A with SimGuru Grant on Twitter, covering some stuff that I didn't get to last time since it was getting a bit lengthy. But we're going to be going over the possibility of more family gameplay and some behind the scenes stuff with some existing packs and some that are considered kind of controversial, but surprisingly not about my first pet stuff. So to start off with family gameplay, Ray S asks, I'm really sorry for another possible question, but would a Generations type pack ever be doable for The Sims 4? I feel like it's perfect since you could finally fix all the life stages everyone's been asking for. Babies, elders, etc., and all the extra stuff asked. And Grant says, Parenthood was our first stab at this, and it performed very well. I think we may continue tackling different life stages, but instead of one big pack, in bits and pieces as it makes the most sense. And then Government Gypsy asked if they will be in free updates, because if a pack that I don't personally like the theme of comes out and it has prams and changing tables for babies, I'm not gonna buy it just for that. And Grant says, I don't know, it depends on what we do, it's never a formula for us. While the idea of a family-oriented expansion pack for The Sims 4 does sound pretty nice at first, I think I might actually agree with Grant on this one, because I know this is an extremely unpopular opinion these days, but I don't think The Sims 3 Generations was that great of an expansion pack. Like, it added some nice things, but I would definitely not say that it's the best expansion pack for The Sims 3, like I think a lot of people say, because while not everything felt this way, I do feel like a lot of it was just, oh, this should have been in the base game. It just felt like a gap filler and not much of an actual expansion pack, and it also did not come with the new world. I know this sort of pack didn't really need one, but that was quite unusual for The Sims 3, because almost every expansion pack did come with a new world, but that one didn't, so it even more felt like, oh, okay, this is just extra stuff that probably should have been in the game, but is not. So, yeah, I don't want a pack quite like that for The Sims 4, though arguably Get Together felt a little bit like that too, in my opinion. I feel like it can be compared to Generations in that aspect, even though the themes of Get Together and Generations probably could not be any more opposite for each other. But yeah, to me they both feel a little bit like gap fillers. Though at least Get Together did come with what I think is one of the best worlds in The Sims 4 to date, Windenburg, but yeah. But gameplay for families and just other age groups in general, apart from adults, is definitely something that I still want to see, because even though Parenthood I think is a really great pack and is one of the best ones for The Sims 4 to date, it's basically laser focused on parenting, which makes sense since it was a game pack, but there's definitely more that can be done. I know a lot of people want things like ballet, prom nights, sleepovers, more stuff for elders like canes and bingo, and maybe even stuff like board games. I think that'd be pretty cute. Like, yeah, I like the Don't Wake the Llama being brought back from The Sims 2 and Get Together. That was nice, but yeah, I mean, more choices would be nice. And for events like prom night and graduation, I think it'd be really great if they were not rabbit holes this time around. I think it would be really interesting just seeing, like, at a graduation event, you're sitting down with your parents, and then you see, like, someone at the podium and calling up each student that's graduating. I just think that would be really cool and much better than just watching the city hall from outside and hearing sounds that sound like graduation. Also, I really want more stuff for playgrounds. There's a little bit of that in the game right now, and they did add the swing sets finally with Seasons last year, but I mean, it's almost 5 years since The Sims 4 came out, and we still don't have seesaws and hopscotch. Like, what's up with that? So, yeah, I think we definitely need those, and sandboxes too. I think that would be pretty cute for toddlers and children to play in. Maybe even teenagers, who knows? Or just just give sandboxes to everybody. Same with the seesaws and the hopscotch. Like, don't have it be like exclusive to one age group. You can have everybody do it, but you can still mainly use that object with one age group. It's kind of like what I've said whenever I've mentioned wanting bingo for elders. Like, yeah, and same with knitting too. Like, you can have any age group do it, but yeah, I would probably do mainly sewing and knitting and bingo with elders as opposed to other age groups. And also the treehouse from the beginning of the Sims 3 Generations trailer. It could be interesting to see what they could do with those. Maybe make them better than they were in The Sims 3 though. Instead of it being like a rabbit hole and you could occasionally see the kids pop out of certain areas, they could maybe make them sort of like shell buildings. Like they kind of did that with the old Penelope plane in StrangerVille. Maybe just do a similar sort of thing with the tree houses where you can have that treehouse appearance, but you can customize either most or all of the appearance inside. So you can just have a really cool sort of hideaway for your kids, but you can still actually see them do stuff. And also that way, maybe incorporate some other activities from other packs they have installed and put those in the treehouse. Yeah, the treehouse could be a really interesting object if they really just took it a little bit further. And I do think with at least some of these ideas, they could be put into a game pack that centers around elementary and high school, because I still think university should get the full expansion pack treatment. But if they tried to cram 3 different school types into one expansion pack, then I think the overall quality would suffer just across the board, and that would not go over very well, I'm sure. But at this point, this video is pretty much becoming my Sims 4 wishlist family gameplay. Moving on to the next question, Bexy Playground asks, is there a way to open the game and skip the StrangerVille gameplay? I want to live in the world without the story. And Grant replies with, this question is super important. I think one of our biggest challenges in The Sims, going back multiple generations, is getting too scared to go one way or another. I'm thrilled on TS4. We've done Vampires, Parenthood, and StrangerVille, 3 very controversial packs. And talking specifically about StrangerVille, Grant says, this is one of our key challenges. It is difficult for us to implement a lot of things to turn off and disable stuff. We're great at making things, but it's tough to have it both ways, if that makes sense. We took the risk in the hopes it was super interesting. And I think I do get what Grant is saying here, because one thing I really love about StrangerVille is that with the story, it really helps set StrangerVille apart from other worlds, and I think more of that needs to be done in the future. Like, I'm not saying do these crazy far out stories with each and every world that comes out in the future, but yeah, just have something where it really does feel like you get a different experience living in each world apart from the backdrops. There definitely are some examples of gameplay and stuff that is exclusive to certain worlds. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head are the festivals with city living, but then all the other stuff that I can remember is kind of just smaller stuff. Like with the collections, there's certain things that you can only get in certain worlds, like with the snow globes and the city posters, you can only get those in San Myshuno, and with Brindleton Bay, and well, actually Mirage Park in Del Sol Valley has some of the pigeons as well, because there's like the flocks of those and the seagulls that you can chase away to get the feathers for the feather collection. So yeah, and oh, I almost forgot the food because yeah, with City Living there's all those food stands that have food from various cultures, and then there's also that food stand in Sable Square in Brindleton Bay that has that sparkling apple cider, I think it's called. So yeah, it's just kind of smaller stuff. So I think it would be neat to see some worlds in the future also have like some bigger stuff that you only get in that world. Of course, Granite Falls and Selva Dorada have some interesting, unique stuff too, but I was just talking about the worlds that our Sims can actually live in. But getting back to the thread at hand here, Zistel ended up asking, why would Parenthood be controversial? I've seen that most Simmers love family play. And Grant responds with, firstly, it's always dangerous to assume what most Simmers want. In the past, our super family-focused packs haven't always sold as well. Lindsay was very passionate about making Parenthood, and her bet paid off. Hell, I was worried it wouldn't succeed, I'll admit it. And it is pretty interesting to hear this because there are lots of simmers out there, and those of us on Twitter only represent some of us, and I don't know, I'm not really sure about a percentage, but not the biggest one, because, yeah, from what I see on Twitter, it does seem blatantly obvious that the majority of us are all for family play. But yeah, there's also groups of us who would rather just keep things a little bit more simple and play with 1 or 2 young adult Sims living together and just living out their lives that way. It's quite a diverse group of players that we have with The Sims, and it's quite different compared to a lot of other games that I play in my spare time. It still does surprise me a little bit that Generations might not have sold as well as we would like to think, but I guess it is just one of those cases where it's more of a silent majority. But in the end, I am really grateful that SimGuru Lindsay stuck up for us family players, because I think Parenthood turned out really great, and from what I see, Parenthood is one of the best received packs with Sims 4 so far, not just compared to the other game packs, but even against the expansion packs, I see Parenthood doing really well. And I would agree with that to a point, because I would definitely rank Get Together and Get to Work below Parenthood. And speaking of Get Together, let's talk about that expansion for a bit. So Cheese Nachos asks, what were some packs that were hard to name? And Grant replies, I thought we would never find a name for Get Together. We spent months trying to name it. And that does not surprise me, because even Get Together, I feel like, does not explain the pack's contents all of that well. It's just a very strange pack in my opinion. And then when Manny Mandrake says, I don't hate the name at all, but I feel like while it highlights really cool new features, it didn't totally sell the whole pack, if that makes sense. But it just meant I was super pleasantly surprised when I found how amazing it all was. One of the best expansion packs, in my opinion. Oh boy, I could not more strongly disagree with that opinion if I tried. But Grant replies saying pitching the club system to the community was very, very difficult. I sort of wish we called it late night or nightlife, for example, and then let the club system speak for itself once people found it. And yeah, I agree with Grant on this as well, though I don't really like it when they repeat names from previous iterations of similar packs. Like, with Seasons, they've called it Seasons all 3 times that they've done it. Though I guess in that case, it is very hard to call Seasons something else different. Plus, there's the whole hype train attached to Seasons whenever that expansion pack comes out for the latest Sims game. But yeah, it is kind of repetitive at the same time. But yeah, at least it would have, I think, made a little bit more sense with what Get Together ended up being. And I still remember pretty well how the whole leading up to the release of Get Together was. So when this first trailer came out, there was so much hate because while there was this trailer that showed off some new things, like, oh, there's new drinks, there's natural pools, there's some dancing, it really did not give a good overview of what the pack actually was about and left so many of us confused. There was a blog post that went along with it, but it didn't really explain that much more. And then they left us hanging for months, with the only new thing released during that time was a random picture from SimGuru Sarah that showed the 2-dimensional sheep in the background of the rural neighborhood of Windenburg, and it was just like, what? That was a pretty messy time. And then they eventually released the more specific trailers, and the one that went in depth on the clubs, that's when things started to make a little bit more sense. It's like, okay, this is where they're going with this expansion pack. I even vaguely remember they initially promoted walk-in closets as a main feature, like one of the headlining features of the expansion pack, and people were talking about that, and then they ended up changing it to something else. I can't actually remember, but yeah, that was a whole thing too. I mean, it was pretty cool that we got walk-in closets with that expansion pack, but to promote that one gameplay object that's not actually like a really, really big thing in the grand scheme of a pack, it was just like pretty questionable. it didn't really paint a great picture. It'd be like if one of the main headlining features of StrangerVille was that laptops were coming back. Even though those were highly requested, they're just a very small part of the whole pack, and they don't even really do that much different from the normal computers that we have with the base game already. But of course, over time, more people warmed up to it, and yeah, now whenever I express my disappointment in Get Together, I always have people jumping on me saying, "Oh, how could you possibly not like Get Together? It's one of the best expansion packs ever made," and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that happened. And that wraps up another Sims info/thoughts video, so feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below about any of the topics that I discussed, and be sure to leave a like or a comment or even subscribe because it lets me know that you like my content and it helps you keep up to date with my latest things from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!